Yeah, I don't need a beatbox for my intro. Hello, it's Joshua. We're back. So the last behind the scenes video that I did got a lot of positive feedback. I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed that. And in that video, I asked if you wanted me to cover one of my other routines, and there were 2 people that requested Keep On Singing, which would actually work out because 7 days after I post this video will be the 1-year anniversary of the original wildcard. And I may be posting something on that day to commemorate the occasion. So just make sure that you're subscribed, maybe enable notifications if you feel so inclined. But otherwise, let's jump into Keep On Singing. Yeah, so I would say Keep On Singing was the first track that I was actually proud of. I first got my loop station back in 2018, and from that point up until I entered the online worlds, my tracks weren't good. Actually, I'm still proud of Fly Me to the Moon, but other than that, yeah. At the time of creating this routine, I was listening to a lot of electronic music that had more melodic elements. One of the first ideas I had was to incorporate some jazz chords. The first chord is F minor 9. The second chord is E flat major 9. As you can tell, I really love ninths. And I had no problem achieving this with the granular delay, but I was really thankful that I could use the regular delay for the bass notes. Other loopers know this, but the delay effect in the RC505 doesn't produce exact notes in some parameters. Some parameters produce frequencies that are slightly off pitch from a regular 12-note scale. So I lucked out when I figured out that the delay notes I needed were actually pretty spot on. And here's one of the first versions I made. You may notice that the vocoder part has the same rhythm as the kick drum, and after listening to it a couple of times, I slowly realized that everything sounded very uniform and needed more dynamics. So eventually I came up with a different rhythm. So moving on, in the second part of the build-up, I layer robot notes to create this melody. As you heard, it's composed of 4 notes, E flat, F, G, and B flat, but there was originally a 5th note in there, C. I thought it added to the melody, and I kept it around for a long time. It was only after I tried performing the routine in real time that I realized it took a big chunk of time to record the 5th note. It would have taken 5 to 6 extra seconds to layer, and I had none to spare. I mean, now I know it's probably possible to layer it quicker, but hey, it was my first wildcard. I didn't know that yet. I decided to condense it to 4 notes and just replace that C with another E flat, and it sounds pretty good. Now for the drop. I'm a big fan of silence and space in music when it's tastefully done. I also really like synths that attack and disappear just as quickly, so I wanted to incorporate something like that into the drop. My first idea was to use the slow gear effect, which basically causes a sound to swell, and I would combine that with the play and stop buttons to create that attack effect. Hi, this is Joshua in post editing this video. I'm re-listening to the slow gear thing, and that sounds so much better than using faders. Why didn't I do that? Whatever, next time. I would eventually replace that technique with simply moving the faders up and down for 2 reasons. 1, because slow gear took up a slot on the track effects, and I really wanted that slot for transpose to get that higher octave in the second part of the drop. And 2, because, you know, I thought it looked cool. It would get me originality points or something. And to this day, my faders on track 3 and 4 are kind of loose compared to the others, so that's a thing. I hope that doesn't turn out to be bad in the future. I mean, it's been a year, and it's been alright so far. So, hooray? You know, one regret I do have with this track doesn't actually have to do with the routine itself, but rather the video and the way I published it. I didn't use any major EQ or compression for my drums, so on first listen, the track sounded kind of weak, and I had a genius plan to fix that. Pop it into Audacity with no sound engineering experience, and just EQ. And after I posted the wildcard on YouTube, I realized my mistake. The snares were low on some parts, the bass was just too overbearing. Moral of the story? get a professional. But other than that, I'm still really proud of the track. When performed correctly, I personally believe it's one of my best tracks. And that is how I somehow got a 4th wildcard. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you at Kickback.